The possible new case in California, the Washington Post now reporting the person had no known history of travel to any countries hard hit. Authorities set to speak just moments from now. Also tonight, the other case, the first one of unknown origin, and reports that woman is on a ventilator, critically sick. Why she was not tested for days, so where does testing stand across the country? And the CDC acknowledging tonight it has not gone as we would have liked. President Trump late today on the response. Also tonight, the FDA reporting the first drug shortage here in the U.S. because factories are shut down in China. Dr. Jen Ashton is here answering your questions tonight. The economy this evening, Wall Street plunging again tonight, the worst week since the financial crisis in 2008. What the Federal Reserve Chairman said today about the U.S. economy. And now children being sprayed down overseas, several countries closing schools, banning events. And news tonight on Pope Francis, who was in public shaking hands on Ash Wednesday, sending a message about coronavirus. The next day, events canceled, reports he has a cold, and what the Vatican is saying. The major storm slamming parts of the Northeast, the brutal cold moving in, and now the next storm brewing already. The South Carolina showdown tomorrow, then Super Tuesday. Could Bernie Sanders make the math very difficult to catch up? And how badly does Joe Biden need a major win? The fire tonight burning dangerously close to homes in California. And the Astros players returning, getting hit repeatedly. Coincidence or payback for cheating?
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Friday night. And we begin tonight with coronavirus here in the U.S. and reports late today of that possible second case now of unknown origin here in the U.S. The Washington Post first reporting this potential new case and confirmed just moments ago. It comes as that first patient who had no history or contact with anyone from any of the countries of concern is tonight at a California hospital. She's reportedly on a ventilator, critically sick. Why was she not tested for days? And as we know, the majority of the passengers evacuated from that cruise ship in Japan were quarantined in California in the same county where that woman lived. Will they find a link? And tonight, where does the testing stand across the country? The CDC acknowledging tonight it has not gone as well as we would have liked. President Trump with a response late today, but we begin with the late news, this second case now confirmed of community spread. We begin with ABC's Will Carr in California tonight.
Tonight, the coronavirus is spreading in California. The Washington Post is reporting a second case with an unknown origin, this time in Santa Clara County, just days after a similar case in Solano County. Are you concerned that more people in your county possibly have coronavirus right now and don't even know it?
I'm not concerned. I'm certain.
The CDC is already retracing the steps of the first person believed to have contracted the disease in her community. The woman lives in the same county as Travis Air Force Base, where hundreds of Americans have been quarantined. She's critically ill at UC Davis and on a ventilator.
I think it's the tip of the iceberg in terms of the number of cases that are out there.
We know it took 11 days after the woman's initial trip to the ER with flu-like symptoms for doctors to confirm she had the virus. Since the woman had not traveled or had contact with anyone who tested positive, doctors had to wait days to test her.
The woman was not tested, not allowed to be tested. The CDC protocols were absolutely incorrect.
The patient's family and dozens of healthcare workers from 2 hospitals who treated her are now all under quarantine. As for testing, today the CDC says it's fixed its faulty testing kits.
This has not gone as smoothly as we would have liked. Our goal is to have every state and local health department online doing their own testing by the end of next week.
But even after testing on the ground, states will have to wait for days for confirmation from the CDC in Atlanta. On Capitol Hill today, there are growing calls for an investigation after a whistleblower alleged some federal workers who received coronavirus evacuees at 2 California bases did not have proper training or gear.
How they got back home. They were from all over the country. Where did they stay? I heard that one of them stayed at least in a local hotel.
Tonight at Travis Air Force Base, there are still 150 passengers from the Diamond Princess under quarantine. 6 people from the ship have died overseas, including 2 overnight British and Japanese citizens. 44 American passengers have been sickened. We followed Mark Jorgensen when he flew to Travis 2 weeks ago on a plane with infected passengers. Jorgensen had to leave his wife, who had the virus, behind in a Japanese hospital. Tonight, he's off the base and in a hospital after testing positive for the virus.
It says, get all your stuff and throw it in biohazard bags. So that is all my luggage. that is going to be thrown on the ambulance with me.
All right, so let's get back to Will Carr. He's with us live from California again tonight. And Will, I know with this second case now confirmed of possible community spread, health officials are now telling you they're concerned that the virus is being spread by people without symptoms.
That's a major concern, David. You've seen people coming into the United States at airports being tested for having a fever. Well, the big concern here is all the people who don't show any symptoms who could still pass along the coronavirus to other people. One public health official here tells me tonight that we have no idea how many Americans actually have the virus. David.
All right, Will Carr leading us off. Will, thank you. Wall Street plunging again today with a slight rally in the final minutes, closing out the worst week since the financial crisis in 2008. The Dow down 357 points after falling nearly 1,100 points earlier in the day. Big losses every day this week, a loss of more than 12%, in fact. That hasn't happened since 2008. Let's get right to ABC's chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis, live at the New York Stock Exchange again tonight. And Rebecca, there was a rare move from the Fed chief today, offering words to try to calm fears, to try to calm these markets.
That's right, David. Fed Chair Powell offering some reassurances, saying the fundamentals of the U.S. economy remain strong. However, the coronavirus poses evolving risks to economic activity, adding, we will use our tools to support the economy, hinting at a rate cut next month and trying to allay those evolving fears here on Wall Street. David?
Rebecca Jarvis with us every night this week. Rebecca, thank you. This all comes as the World Health Organization raises the global risk assessment to its highest level. At least 54 countries now reporting infections, more and more countries now taking steps to stop the spread. In fact, schools in Japan, Hong Kong, and several other countries are now shut down. In fact, today was the last day for Japanese students for at least a month. And in Italy, look at this image tonight. Soccer games are being played in completely empty stadiums. And tonight, Pope Francis, who was out in public on Ash Wednesday, sending a message on coronavirus, now canceling some events, raising some alarm amid reports he now has a cold. ABC's James Longman tonight.
Tonight, precautions becoming more radical around the world. In Lebanon, students sprayed with disinfectant, testing for fever on the spot. The WHO raising the global risk assessment to its highest level and a blunt warning.
It's really not much of an excuse at this point to get caught unawares. This is a reality check for every government on the planet. Wake up, get ready.
Switzerland taking drastic action, becoming the first country to outlaw any gatherings of over 1,000 people. In Japan, a nationwide school shutdown. 12 million students ordered to stay home by the Prime Minister. But he's insisting the upcoming 2020 Tokyo Olympics are not in danger, although some fear they could be cancelled. In Italy, an eerily quiet soccer game in an empty Milan stadium. Italy is spooked. It has more than 600 patients hit with the virus. Pope Francis, whose Ash Wednesday Mass expressed solidarity with those infected, now has an apparent cold. There's no indication it's linked to coronavirus, but he has cancelled all his audiences. In Iran, another viral epicenter, the most senior female official is infected. She was at a cabinet meeting with President Rouhani just days ago. This coming on the heels of the country's infected health minister sweating and coughing while urging calm, which sparked fear that Iran was underreporting the gravity of its outbreak.
James Longman with us tonight from London. And James, you mentioned the Pope there canceling some events. Of course, this led to concern from many. We don't want to alarm people because the Vatican is downplaying those concerns. So what are they saying tonight? And you've also got news that broke late today from the State Department involving Americans and Italy tonight.
Yeah, so the Vatican says he is continuing his work. He does have a cold. He just prefers to stay near his home. And tonight, the State Department is warning Americans to reconsider travel to Italy because of what they're calling a sustained community spread of the virus. David?
All right, ABC's James Longman with us tonight. James, our thanks to you as well. And here at home tonight, there are major questions about testing and why states and major cities have not been equipped with the kits they need to test for coronavirus, especially after learning that first case of community spread, that California woman with no known connection to China, Italy, or any of these hotspots was not tested for days before learning she had coronavirus. So let's get right back to our chief medical editor, Dr. Jen Ashton, with us tonight, because, Jen, we learned that the CDC has now expanded these guidelines. You reported on this last night here, but now we've learned of a key component of that expansion.
And this is good news, David, because as we said last night, they've broadened the list, adding some more countries to the criteria list, but they've also broadened the categories to include unexplained causes of severe pneumonia or respiratory illness. So this would be in a hospitalized patient in an ICU setting. This would have picked up that case much sooner because it would have allowed doctors to test for it. The goal from the CDC, they said it just today, is to have every state and local health department running their own tests by next week. And we have to remind people, though, 80% or more of these cases are mild.
Mild cases, but people will be reassured to hear they're ramping this up and quickly, as many believe they should have done. We also know that many prescriptions used by Americans are actually manufactured in China. And tonight the FDA is actually confirming that one drug they're experiencing a shortage of. They haven't revealed what this drug is, which is somewhat alarming. What does that tell you?
Well, we expected this because, again, China does control the majority of the world's supply of pharmaceuticals. But there is redundancy in the system, which is good news. So other manufacturers, other countries can pick up the slack for that. And again, not to cause any alarm right now, but make sure that you have a little bit extra if you're taking a prescription medication.
A couple of weeks worth of that prescription
Absolutely.
extra, which takes me to my next question. The weekend is here. Americans will be out and about. And as we've been doing all week, just a bit of a reminder that you should pick up a little extra. And the CDC is now saying that be prepared for 2 weeks of supplies if there should be a disruption coming.
Right, and I think 2 weeks is reasonable. Again, think of this as you would a major snowstorm or weather event coming, so you want to pick up a few extra groceries. If you take prescription medications, make sure you have an additional 2-week supply if possible, so you want to contact your healthcare provider about that. Communicate with schools, workplaces to find out what plans they have in place. And David, I think this is important, not just because it's common sense and logistically a good idea, but psychologically it can help put us at ease.
Which is exactly what we want to do. Dr. Jen Ashton tonight. Jen, thank you. And one more note tonight. You might have heard that headline about the possible first spread of the virus to a dog. The Hong Kong government tonight ordering pets of coronavirus patients to be quarantined themselves after a dog belonging to an infected person there tested a weak positive. The dog didn't show any symptoms, but a swab of its nose and mouth did show signs. It's not clear tonight yet whether the dog was actually infected by a human or whether its mouth or nose came in contact with the virus. Here at home, President Trump late today speaking about the response here in the U.S. as he now heads to a rally tonight. Here's ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl now.
President Trump tonight insisted his administration has everything under control.
We're very well organized. We have great talent, great doctors, great everyone.
And he again sought to downplay the threat in the United States.
We haven't lost anybody yet, and hopefully we can keep that intact. There have been no deaths in the United States at all.
But there is bipartisan concern. Republican Senator Thom Tillis wrote a letter today to the defense secretary saying, quote, "The global outbreak is concerning and presents an enduring and uncertain threat. The anxieties and concerns I am hearing from our service members and their families are justified." Vice President Mike Pence is now vetting the information that's released to the public. But today, administration experts, including the widely respected Anthony Fauci of the National Institutes of Health, briefed members of Congress.
Dr. Fauci was very pointed in saying, I've not been muzzled. I've not been muzzled. And I took that to mean, I took that to mean he can still speak his mind, and I'm relieved.
So let's get to John Karl. He's live at the White House. John, the president headed to that rally tonight, but the president moments ago also making news on something else, announcing he's going to nominate Texas Congressman John Ratcliffe as his next director of national intelligence. And this is the second time he's tried to nominate Congressman Ratcliffe, is it not?
And David, the last time he nominated him, which was last summer, Ratcliffe ended up pulling out after facing bipartisan blowback over his lack of national security experience and allegations that he had exaggerated his resume. But Ratcliffe was a prominent defender of the president's during the impeachment proceedings. But I've got to tell you, David, this will be a tough confirmation battle, to say the least.
All right, John Karl on a Friday night. John, thank you. And we turn next to the race for 2020 tonight, the South Carolina primary tomorrow, of course, then Super Tuesday. Could Bernie Sanders make the math very difficult to catch up? How badly does Joe Biden need a major win tomorrow, as the candidates now make the case amid these coronavirus fears that they could better handle this crisis? Terry Moran tonight from South Carolina.
On the eve of the South Carolina primary, the threat of a coronavirus pandemic could be fundamentally changing this presidential campaign, and you could hear it on the campaign trail.
Folks, Trump thought that his upbeat tweets could somehow stop the coronavirus.